Welcome back to KHTS Radio. I'm Jade Aubuchon, KHTS Co-News Director, continuing with our series of interviews with school board and SCV Water District candidates for 2022. I'm currently joined by Ms. Teresa Todd, who is running for a seat on the Hart District Board. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in. It's been great seeing all of our candidates today. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Teresa Todd, as you said. I'm a 31-year resident of Santa Clarita, the Newhall area specifically. My family and I moved up here for the schools, and we stayed for 31 years plus because of the community. I mean, this is our forever home. There's no question about that. Our children went through the Hart District and have all kind of found their passion and success in life. And I am so grateful for what our schools were able to give our children and now our grandchildren as well. So, as far as my background, I'm founder and owner of Point of View Communications. It's a public relations communications agency. I academically, I have a master's in business administration from USC with an emphasis in marketing and finance. And then went back to school for a second master's in strategic public relations, USC as well. So
Very impressive.
there you go.
So we're going to launch right into our questions. I'm going to have a timer set up.
Okay.
So with about 2 minutes for each question. So I'll set it up. So we could just silence that real quick.
I did.
Uh,
I thought, I'm
it
sorry.
hates you. It's okay. It's okay. At least you had one of the more tame ringtones. I'm sure we've had some fun ones on here.
Sorry.
No, you're totally fine.
Okay.
So we'll have it about 2 minutes. You'll be able to see the timer counting down.
All right. Thank
You
you.
ready?
Go.
Okay. What makes you think you are best qualified for the job?
Well, I'm a local business owner, and I have been elected to the governing board of the Sulphur Springs School District in the past. And why that is important is because I know governance. In addition to my other two masters in the academic world, I also have a master's in governance from the California School Boards Association. So I know what governance is and what it is not. And I was the first public information officer of the Hart District. In addition to having been elected to Sulphur Springs, I've been very, very active in the educational community. I was on the board of directors for the Santa Cruz Valley Facilities Foundation, which brought the community Golden Valley High School and Golden Valley Road, which I'm very proud of. It was a time when our schools were bursting at the seams and we needed facilities. Now we're in declining enrollment and it's a whole different animal, if you will. So,
On to question number 2. What are the district's 3 most pressing issues?
this is a hard one because there are so many issues with the district right now. First and foremost, I think it's the loss of student learning that we've seen since the pandemic. And we have students in our care for 6 years in the Hart District. And already we've had 2 graduating classes since the pandemic that are no longer in our care, but we have to do everything possible to make sure that we give the tools and resources for every student to be able not only to catch up from that loss, but to be able to succeed in life. And so I call that the back to basics because we really do need to look at those core curriculums and do what we can to bring everyone back up to speed. We are in an endemic now, which means we pretty much have to learn to live with what's out there. So it's I think that's definitely number one. The second issue is accountability. It always will be accountability for every tax dollar spent. You know, we are there to represent the parents and the community and the taxpayers for the benefit of students. That's pretty much the role of the governing board. And then the third thing, and this is near and dear to my heart, is communication. I'm a communications professional, and Sometimes I listen to the district and I think they take much more of a defensive position. And so I would like to see them be more proactive, more transparent, and regarding the challenges that they face, and really to find community partners. All right.
Well done. Next question. So, this is a little bit more relevant to some recent events that have been happening in our area. Several weeks ago, the Blue Lives Matter flag was flown at a Saugus High School football games by their players. The Blue Lives Matter flag is meant to honor law enforcement, and especially because of the response to the Saugus shooting back in 2019. The Hart District Administration has forbidden students from flying the flag on the field at the start of their games. What is your take on that, and would you allow the students to do so?
Well, I was at that game, the first one where they were not allowed to carry it. And as my understanding, it's also known as the Thin Blue Line flag. And it was created to honor law enforcement. As with many things, it's been hijacked to be a politically charged conversation. And I understand the bond that Saugus has with law enforcement and the circumstances of November 14th, 2019. I wrote an op-ed that published in the local newspaper regarding this, this exact matter. And without even opining whether it should be allowed or not, what I take issue with is the way the decision came down. There was one or two, disgruntled posts regarding it. School administrators unilaterally banned it. The district supported that. It never went before the board. And so in my op-ed piece, I challenged the governing board to address not just the Thin Blue Line flag, but all flags, because we have to have parity. We have to have policy that helps guide these decisions. It just can't be a one-off every time.
Final question before we move on to our custom questions here. If we have another rise in cases due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, as you said, now endemic, would you be in favor of shutting down our schools again for in-classroom learning?
Well, the simple answer to that is no. But the more complicated question is, since Santa Clarita does not have its own public health department, we have to follow under the guidelines of LA County. We can be more restrictive, we cannot be less restrictive. And then the same goes for the county with the state. I mean, that's kind of the hierarchy. And as you move down the tiers, we are really at the beck and call of what guidelines come down. If they are mandates, we have to follow them. If they are guidelines, then no, I would not support closing our schools again. There was too much loss.
All right, we're now going to move on to our custom questions. Unfortunately, the candidate that you were running against, incumbent Sharice Moore, did not turn in a question, so we are going to be asking you one from our editorial staff here.
Okay.
Our editorial staff would like you to bring forward any concerns that you have about development in SCV and how that would affect the school district here.
You're talking about housing development, commercial development?
That was what they were thinking.
Okay. Well, and that's where my area of expertise with the Facilities Foundation and the Hart District really come into play, because we receive developer fees or reach developer agreements depending upon how large the housing project or commercial project is. And so that is dependent upon the size of the project and what we do with that money. I will say my opponent and I both have voting records that we have to stand behind. But I am very proud that when I was on the Sulphur Springs School Board, that Golden Oak Community School came to fruition. And that's an example exactly of that. We had a developer agreement to build a turnkey school in that project. Something changed and they turned it into developer fees. Money is good, but it doesn't solve the problem of overcrowding necessarily. And so I wrote an op-ed piece that published in the Signal. I was on the losing side of that vote by the board, but I did what was right for students, and suddenly the developer came back to the table, and we got a school. So I'm very proud of that, but I will always, it doesn't matter if I'm on a minority vote. I will always do what's best for students without favoritism or partiality or personal agenda.
So as I said before, everybody had their opportunity to bring forth a question to their opponent. Obviously, Dr. Moore is not here today, but would you like to still pose that question?
Well, I would. The question that I asked was regarding the retirement of the Hart Indian last year. And Jade, so I've done, a lot of research with the information that's available. I watched the board meeting where the decision came down, and it's an hour long, but it started out reasonably enough, and then at the end, it was so rushed, this decision to retire the Indian, without any plan for funding, such a huge endeavor, or the fact that the high schoolers now will be gone by the time the retirement happens. So now you've got today's 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who are going to be tasked with that. But my question would have been one of funding. What's the plan? I'm a business owner. I'm not a career educator. I think that gets in the way of decision making on the governing board, because like I said in the very beginning, I understand what governance is and what it isn't, and we are there to support the superintendent, not to compete with the superintendent. Should never be a duplication of the administrative team. We hire the best and the brightest to educate our students. Why do we want to duplicate that on the board? We want representatives for parents, taxpayers, and community. And that's what I bring to the board. We don't have a balance right now.
Thank you so much for joining us and for bringing your questions.
There you go. I'd love an answer. I would love an answer. And so hopefully I will be sitting on the board and be able to bring this question up, and we'll have resolution. We'll have an answer.
Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Jade Aubuchon, and I've been speaking with Hart District candidate Teresa Moore.
Teresa Todd.
There you go. You're right. I got mixed you up with your opponent, actually, so that's very funny. Thank you very much. This is like the 4th interview I've done today, so I appreciate you keeping me in check.
There you go.
If you'd like more information, you can keep on listening to our SCV Water and School Board interviews that are going on over the next 2 days. Tune in to KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220 and hometownstation.com.